A question that I propose to Bill: on what basis does he change firstborn, prototokos, in verse 15 to preeminent one when the term is already used in verse 18 as proton? Did he answer the question? No, not really. He just gave me a bunch of commentaries on why they believe prototokos, firstborn, means preeminent one, and none of them commented on why prototokos and proton were used interchangeably. He mainly focused on firstborn in verse 15, but notice how some of those same commentaries camouflage firstborn as a literal first from the dead to have immortal life, but they refuse to mention Jesus is the first in creation in verse 15. Adam Clarke's commentary reads, "The beginning, the firstborn from the dead. Christ is called the first fruits of them that slept, and here the chief and firstborn from the dead, he being the first that ever resumed the natural life, with the employment of all its functions, never more to enter the empire of death, after having died a natural death, and in such circumstances as precluded the possibility of deception. The arche, the chief, head, or first answers, in this verse to the arche, or first fruits. Jesus Christ is not only the first who rose from the dead to die no more, but he is the first fruits of human beings. For as surely as the first fruits were an indication and pledge of the harvest, so surely was the resurrection of Christ the proof that all mankind should have a resurrection from the dead." Then we read from People's Commentary, New Testament. Paul portrays Christ as the center and source of the creation. In this section, he shows that he is the head of the new creation. He is the head of the body, the church. In the church, he is preeminent. It is his spiritual body, and he is the supreme head, who is the beginning. The new creation began from him and in him. He is first of all in time, the firstborn from the dead. He first conquered death, and not for himself alone, but the great company of those found in him who have been born from the dead. Barnes' Notes on the New Testament. The firstborn from the dead, at the head of those who rise from their graves. This does not mean literally that he was the first who rose from the dead, for he himself raised up Lazarus and others, and the bodies of saints arose at his crucifixion. But it means that he had the preeminence among them all. He was the most illustrious of those who will be raised from the dead, and is the head over them all. Especially he had this preeminence in the resurrection in this respect, that he was the first who rose from death to immortality. Others who were raised undoubtedly died again. Christ rose to die no more. To sum up Bill's reply and those other scholars he brought up can be summarized in the easy-to-read Bible. At least they are not ashamed of their game and are honest that they are inconsistent on how they use the word firstborn, prototokos. And it reads in the easy-to-read Bible, verse 15. No one can see God, but Jesus is exactly like God. Jesus rules over, prototokos, everything that has been made. And then there's a footnote. And what does the footnote say? Literally, firstborn of all creation. So what they're telling us here, well, firstborn really doesn't mean firstborn or the first. It's telling us that Jesus is the ruler over creation. That's what it's telling us. Then when we look at verse 18, Christ is the head of the body, which is the church. He is the beginning of everything else, and he is the first prototokos among all who will be raised from death. Then there's a footnote. What does the footnote say? Literally, the firstborn from the dead. So here, prototokos does mean first, but on verse 15 it didn't mean first. it means rules over. So do you see how inconsistent they use this word prototokos? This is exactly how Bill and those other commentaries utilize this word. And this is supposed to be the convincing argument that Jesus isn't the literal firstborn of all creation by using words inconsistently? I don't buy it. When we let the Bible speak for itself without changing words meaning one thing here and the same word having a different meaning there is not satisfactory. At least not to me. Bill, when you kept reading your references, you said, I know it's like beating a dead horse, but in reality, you haven't even touched the surface of the argument. So in conclusion, Bill, based on your commentaries that didn't address the question, I'm assuming you don't have the answer either? Jesus is the literal first of all creation, and he's the literal first to be resurrected from the dead to have immortal life. Keep it consistent.